Hello and welcome to this episode of the REBT Advocates with Dr. Michael R. Adelstein of 3minutetherapy.com. You can find his book, 3-Minute Therapy, Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life at therebt.life, and me, Tommy Bateman, the wonderful counselor in the Richmond, Virginia area. Today, we got a user recommendation to talk about a man named Tony Robbins. I don't know if y'all have heard of him. Apparently, he does like life coaching or something like that. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, Michael, before we get started, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Michael Edelstein. I have a 40 years long experience helping people with REBT. And you can find my practice link and my book link, 3-Minute Therapy, in the description below. And Tommy, are you doing some REBT these days, or is that more in your future?
It is both these days and in the future, expansions to come, and you'll see links in the bottom of the video to prop myself up when it happens.
Okay. And can someone make an appointment with you for a session now, or is that in the future?
Near future.
Okay. Okay. Very
Excellent.
good.
Thank you. So we are talking about Tony Robbins. I was being facetious. I know exactly who he is, and I know you know who he is, folks out there listening. So Michael and I were kind of doing some potpourri. We went to TonyRobbins.com. We wanted to get it from the source, and we're going to have some mixed reviews here. We're going to have some reactions to it. So Michael, why don't you kick us off?
For those people who don't know who Tony Robbins is, he's largely a motivational speaker and writer, and he has a lot of enthusiasm for you. And one of my first issues with him is that he's a sort of a cheerleader of the "you can do it" school.
Yeah.
So just put your mind to it and follow some of his rules, and you can do it. But that's a little over the top. We can't do everything we prefer to do.
Yep.
We can't succeed with all our dreams. And there are many reasons for that. Humans are imperfect, flawed individuals where, to some extent, influenced by our circumstances and luck, good luck, bad luck, the people we find ourselves in the company of. So our health, you may be born with some unfortunate health vulnerabilities. So there are all kinds of other factors rather than you can do it if you're enthusiastic enough and follow Tony Robbins' thoughts.
Yeah, and that's always setting people up for some failure. I mean, let's take a ridiculous example. A person with sub IQ 60 will never be. If we tell them you can be an astronaut if you really try and are really enthusiastic, well, that's not true. There's some natural limitations there, and probably, we might be setting that person up for a bad time. So we can take that ridiculous, far-fetched example and bring it to something more realistic. I'm 50 years old. I'm not, but let's say 50 years old and I want to be a successful MMA fighter. Okay, there might be a chance. I mean, Herschel Walker is doing something like that, but that's Herschel Walker, maybe not you.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as a personal example, I took piano lessons and I failed miserably. And I took voice lessons and I failed miserably.
But you were very enthusiastic about it, and I know that.
Yeah. And I wasn't even that enthusiastic about it, unfortunately.
Must have been
So
fun.
Tony Robbins overall has a lot of pie in the sky wishful thinking.
Mhm.
And what we REBTers would recommend is self-discipline and unconditional self-acceptance. So those would be our guidelines. Work hard at it. Don't give up in the face of difficulty. At some point, you might want to give up in the face of failure, like I did with my piano and voice, but don't give up just because it's hard. In fact, if it's hard, then it's probably worth doing, all other things being equal. And accepting yourself, not putting yourself down when you fail, is another important underlying factor. But we're not saying there's no reason to avoid trying. So you can have, my dream was to get my book 3-Minute Therapy on the New York Times bestseller list, and I'm still trying, even though I realize it's highly unlikely. but I don't have a must or a should. It must happen, and I'm a loser if it doesn't happen.
Exactly. Exactly. So, moving on a bit, as I said, this is a potpourri. We're going to be picking things left and right here. So, Niraj, we had him on recently. He sent us some articles about treating anxiety from TonyRobbins.com. And you know what? I'm going to say some nice things, actually, which is not something I usually do, folks. But some of the things he said in this article, How Do I Treat Anxiety? I'm just going to read them off. He says, accept your anxiety, right? So, if you read that little paragraph he has under it, it's kind of not being anxious about anxiety, what we would call secondary disturbance. Now he doesn't put it that precisely, but hey, not too bad. Ditching bad habits, of course, nicotine, caffeine, alcohol, all those things jack you up. Yes, even the alcohol, because if you get used to alcohol and you don't get it, well, then your GABA receptors go nuts and you're feeling more anxious. That's why they give people benzos. Taking care of your body, eating healthy. Yes, that also reduces anxiety. Learn how to visualize. I disagree. Using the rocking chair method, whatever. This is all like practical solutions. Half of them I don't disagree with whatsoever. However, what they don't have is a unifying theory that describes why the anxiety happened to begin with. And in there, he may touch it, but it really doesn't. I mean, one of them is change your posture, guys. Come on. I'm slouching in a recliner, not anxious at all right now. It's practical stuff that may help you in a psychosomatic way, but in the end, it doesn't cure the problem, which is the thinking, the cognitions that trigger the fear or the anxiety, that physical sensation you get in the first place. I'm done ranting.
Yeah, yeah, no, but that's an excellent point, and it riddles his advice that he doesn't see that there's an individual involved, their thinking, their subjective, unique ways of coming at things from their own philosophy, perspective, and ideas. I took some of his ideas from his website, and he divides some of them into relationships and work. So one of the things he says about relationships is, quote, what makes a relationship work, things in common, and what makes it passionate, things are very different. Well, again, he misses that people are individuals, and some people might like differences in a relationship. Other people might like things in common. Other people may not care that much and care more about the quality of the communication in the relationship. So there are various things with different individuals that make a relationship work.
That mirrors the let's say that relationship advice of, you need to find someone who agrees with you with religion and politics, because when you're older, the sexual stuff stops mattering so much and the mind stuff starts mattering more. But I mean, we have countless examples on the individual level where people have varying, divergent political and religious views and had happy marriages. I mean,
Exactly. And some people like discussing differences and
yeah,
uh, having respectful debates about those. So
yeah,
again,
absolutely, and that's fun.
are
That's fun.
individuals.
Yeah, and that's the strength of REBT, folks. I mean, we keep it a little bit simpler, but we acknowledge the subjective nature of humanity. And REBT is in very much has a subjective nature to it. It accepts people where they're at and what their individual foibles are. Whereas this, recommendation of what that he has there is kind of a one size fits all rah rah thing.
Exactly. And another example about that is he says about relationships, if that person feels you respect them, you honor them, you accept them, you will own them as long as you remain open. Well,
Mhm.
they may not like you. You may respect them to the nth degree, but they may not like you or your politics or your
Yeah,
religion or your interests are contrary to theirs. So he misses individual differences.
yeah.
Um, and that's a major absence in what he recommends.
Yeah, and really, I'm going back to this anxiety article. What you're saying, a lot of things he says, if you do all of them right, two of them will work for you, and you'll feel a little bit better, and you'll think the whole thing's working for you. But abstaining from caffeine and alcohol, yeah, you will feel less stress, but the problem's still there. So this one size fits all stuff doesn't work, folks. And I know people turn around and like, well, there's only one thing in REBT is just getting rid of your shoulds and musts and all that stuff. Well, that fits all, folks. That does fit all.
Yeah. He says about relationships, the number one rule is my lover comes first. If you're in love, you put their feelings and needs before your own. And I have a different guideline for people. Um, First of all, as Albert Ellis teaches, it's important to put yourself first and the people you care about, like people you love, a close second. And one of the reasons it's important to put yourself first is because you're stuck with you 24 hours a day.
Mm,
So if you're denying your own interests, especially in the things that are non-negotiable, then it's not going to work for you. For example, let's suppose your lover has a dream to live in France. Well, that could be a non-negotiable for you, and the relationship isn't going to work. Uh, so I think it's important to respect uh, your own interests, your most important interests,
yeah, yeah,
before someone else's.
absolutely. Or you can be miserable in France, like Carrie in the last season of Sex in the City. Y'all just watched the last. Yeah, I I'm married, guys. So yeah, no, guys, we can go on and on. Michael, do you want to go on one last thing before we wrap it up?
uh, yes. He says, well, there are a lot of last things, but I'll stick to one. So one of the things he says is your relationship should be your greatest source of pleasure. He has shoulds there. In
Hmm.
other words, they're invariants, they're absolutes, everyone's the same, but actually everyone is unique. We're all unique individuals, and you may have a good relationship, yet your greatest source of pleasure in your life are your children or your hobbies or your work. To summarize his view of relationships, he sort of sacredizes relationships, puts them on the pedestal, and speaks as if they're the answer to your mundane, tedious, boring life, which they're not. It's up to you. It's not the relationship that's going to save you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, my final words are I'm on TonyRobbins.com and my browser has already blocked 65 trackers and ads. Take that for what you will, folks listening. Michael, take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Tommy, for your great participation in this. We'll be back soon with another exciting episode. And please comment below. We'd like to know your thoughts about this episode. If your thoughts were positive, give us a thumbs up. Suggest subjects. Thanks, Niraj, for this subject. And please don't hesitate to volunteer. We'd love to have you on to discuss one of your problems to REBT therapists for the price of one. And donate to Patreon to help support us, and subscribe to the REBT Advocates to stay on the rational side of life.
You